Hi all. First off, I hope you can hear me this week. It came to my attention late last week that the slides didn't have sound. So if that happens again, definitely feel free to email me or post in the technical issues section on the discussion boards. And I apologize for that technical glitch this last week. This week we're going to be finishing our first unit on the identity narrative. So you're going to have two things to do. You're going to have a discussion where you talk about introductions and conclusions. The initial post for that discussion will be due on Wednesday the 12th by midnight. Your replies to your classmates will be due on Sunday the 16th by midnight. You'll also this week be turning in the major paper for this module, which will be the identity narrative itself. And that'll be due by midnight on Sunday as well. I'd like to start off by just reviewing some of the readings you did. I also really encourage you to go back and review those readings more in depth on your own. So the first thing I wanted to review is the introductions. The introduction should do four major things. It should hook your reader, do something to catch the reader's interest. It should introduce the topic. It should set the tone of your essay. And it should present the thesis. Last week you guys had some really great initial thesis statements going. I think you've got I'm seeing some good advice to different people about how to revise those. I will also, when I grade your discussion, give you some thoughts about different things you might do to revise if I think you need to do more revision. So keep an eye out for that. Go back and look for yourself at whether your thesis has done all the stuff that the reading about thesis says it should do. Keep in mind that the thesis is really an umbrella statement that covers the major points you want to make in your essay. All right. You'll also be writing a conclusion for this paper and posting that to the discussion board. There are several ways you can do a conclusion. Your reading will expand on this more, but you can summarize the main points of the essay you've written, or you can return to the beginning. So if there is something that you started out with as a hook that you think you can come back and help your reader get more, or do some summary to help them see where you were going with that, you can definitely do that. Do remember, though, that your conclusion should not repeat anything verbatim from your paper. So this is going to be you pulling the major ideas out and saying them in a new way. You can ask your reader a question. That can be especially useful if there's more you want your reader to think about. You can propose an action. So if you've been looking at, I teach a paper sometimes where students research bands and they think about how those bands have fit into the genre of music that they're looking at. So the most common conclusion I see there is a proposal that the reader go and listen to one or two really significant songs that help illustrate the point that was made. You can also propose an action like if you've written a paper about the health benefits of walking. You can encourage your reader to go out and take a walk, right? So another thing you can do is provide analysis or synthesis of the points you've made. This can be especially important in something like a research paper where you're primarily just laying out information to your reader. In the conclusion, then, you can go beyond the information and tell the reader what's significant, what they should get from this, how all that stuff fits together to make a unified whole. You can also make a prediction in your conclusions. This could be really useful for something like if you had done research about different kinds of energy production. You might then predict where we're going in the US in the next 10 years, right? The final thing that your reading suggests for kind of finishing off a conclusion is to end with a powerful quote. So if there's a quote that you think really sums up or exemplifies the point that you've been trying to make in your essay, feel free to use that. Remember to use signal phrases so that you're introducing where the quote comes from. And be sure to cite that. Alright. So let's look at the identity narrative. I want to start there because your discussion is going to be based so much on the paper that you write. So for the identity narrative, you need to create a thesis statement, which you've started to do, that shows your reader how your group membership influenced in the past or continues to influence your identity. So how does membership in some group, whether it's being a student, a parent, religious affiliation, a hobby or interest group, race, ethnicity, all those different things we've been talking about. Pick one of those groups, figure out how that has influenced the way that you see yourself in relationship to other people in society. Once you've got that thesis down, you're going to tell the story of at least one important moment in your life that illustrates how your identity was influenced by your membership in the group that you've chosen. Finally, as part of your development of this essay, you're going to reflect on the moment and show your reader why it was significant. So one of the things I was telling you about last week in one of those videos that didn't have sound is different ways to structure a narrative. And I think one thing that can be really useful here is a flashback structure. In a flashback structure, you start in the present, and then you take your reader back to a moment, you talk about that moment, and then you come back to the present to reflect. And then you can go back again to the past to tell more about the story. That's a really useful way to help balance your present voice with your voice that's telling the experience in the past. Okay, so once you've kind of figured out where you're going with that narrative, I would look at the introduction and conclusion. Of course, this is due on Wednesday, so this may be something you write before you get your paper written. But at least kind of know your trajectory, get an outline done. So when you're ready to write the introduction and conclusion, go back, think about where you're going, do all that, write those. And then after each one of those, after the intro and the conclusion, you need to reflect on the resources on introductions and conclusions provided in Module 1 and list the features that you have included to make your introduction and conclusion strong and successful. To me, what that would probably look like is for the introduction, talk to us about the hook you used. Why did you choose that hook? Why do you think it's going to get the reader's attention? Explain what background you needed to fill in to help your reader really understand the point you want to make. And then spend a little more time on your revised thesis. For the conclusion, I would then think about which strategy you use to conclude and why you think that's a really effective strategy. Okay, feel free to email me or ask on discussion boards if you have any questions. I look forward to seeing your discussions this week and reading your narratives. Have a good week.